welcome to 698EV. We are doing a CRL 250L front tire removal and install of a new Shinko E804 front tire. That's me in the barn. Just got our socket set up. We're just about to pull that axle nut out and remove that tire. Takes a few minutes, pretty easy, not much to it. It's always good to have your tools out, unlike me not having my tools out and fishing around. It's kind of what I do. Get the gloves, try to keep the grease off. Grab a stool so that way I don't break my back when I'm trying to get it all off. And I'm talking to myself. Tire changer, best thing I ever bought. Tire, the motorcycle lift is just great. What I'm talking about is the Baja No Pinch tire tool. That thing is just nothing but amazing. Alright, well, we're about to go in. Gonna pull that axle nut out. Pretty easy. Sometimes it's a little easier to bang the one side with a rubber mallet. Pull it. Front tires are usually, they're pretty straightforward. I mean, it depends on if you've got a disc brake, single or double disc brake. You just want to make sure that you take your time and don't want to mess that brake up. Once you get it off, as you can see, dropping my secured nut for the tire changer. I usually always start out with the brake disc up. It's just a lot easier, especially when we start using our spoons and everything. It will allow you to put your spoons up underneath whenever you're doing your tire change. So I do suggest getting a tire changing station. It just makes things very nice. Lock this down, and that way it's secured, so it doesn't go around. And you notice that it's set up to spin around, so it makes it real easy when you're spooning your tire off. What I'm doing now is I'm fixing to release all the air out of the tire. Then I'll basically pull the valve stem. Once I pull that valve stem out, that's going to let all the air out of the tube, and it will make it a lot easier so that we can basically pop the tire itself from the rim, or basically we're going to unseat it from the rim itself. So what we'll do is we will push down all the way around, kind of spin the tire a little bit, which you'll see here in just a second, and it will make it nice and easy to get those spoons up in there and pull that tire off. And then once we get that done, what we'll do is we'll basically start getting that tire ready to inspect the rim and then get the new tire, and then we'll start doing the install, and which I'll explain here in just a second once we get a little bit closer. Basically what I'm doing right now is, as I'm pulling that valve stem out, you'll need a valve stem tool. You can pick those up anywhere: Cycle Gear, AutoZone, O'Reilly's. They're cheap. They don't really cost much anything. Once you do that, notice what I'm doing is I'm pushing down. The front tires are easy. The rear tires are a whole other animal because it seats so tight and it's a smaller diameter. That's a 21-inch front tire, which is basically the same size as what you see on your motocross or your dirt tire. So it will, it comes off a lot easier. Once you get that done, what you're going to want to do is find the right size socket, or you can use a wrench. I want to say it's a 12 millimeter, and that's going to take off your nut, or your valve stem nut, which locks down the tube to the rim. Fairly straightforward and simple, not much to it. Once you get that done, you'll take that off, and then what we'll do is when we get to that point, we'll basically loosen the nut onto the tire changing station, and then we're going to put that tire over, and then we're going to deseat it on the other side of the rim, and Then we're going to get ready to get the spoons out, and we are going to start taking that tire off. Taking it off is, believe it or not, is harder than putting it on. Now, as you notice, we're on the other side. What we're doing now is we're just making sure that it's unseated. I'm going to run over to the workbench on the backside and grab the spoons. I like to use 3 spoons. It just makes it easier. Now that I've got all my stuff, I'm going to basically get started on spooning off that tire. I like the fat-headed spoons, by the way. I got those at Cycle Gear. They're not very much. I want to say it was like $20-something for the pair. They're not too bad. You can get those in any Cycle Gear. You get them at Rocky Mountain, any of those places online. They make your life a lot easier. Once you get that spoon up underneath, you'll want to basically place it in, just go to the inner lip of it until you feel it go inside of the rim. Push the first one in, then go about 6 inches, put the second one, and then you'll notice as I come around, then the third. And then once I get about halfway around the tire, front tires are pretty easy. I just kind of lift up on the inner lip and pull up on it, and before you know it, biff bam boom, that bad boy is just off. And then basically once we've got that done, we're ready to rock and roll. So we'll flip that tire over, and then we're going to go and we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. And what happens is we've basically created that tire to be sitting inside of the middle part of the rim. Now that we got that set up, we're basically doing the exact same thing. We're going to go to the inner part, we're going to put the first one in, come underneath, basically lock it inside of the brake disc. This is where all 3 of them come into play. It really is pretty easy. There's not much to it, and you know, sometimes it's easier to bite off little bites versus big bites. That way you can get it off a little bit easier. Sometimes people try to do somewhere around 1 foot to 2 foot every turn, and it just, you really are fighting the tire, whereas if you make smaller bites, it makes it a lot easier. So when you do that, it allows you to, smaller bites, it just pulls it up a whole lot easier. There's a lot less stress on it, and a lot less stress on your rim itself. So now that it's been popped up, basically what I'm doing now is I'm deseeding the tire. I'm basically just pushing down on the tire, and boom, it just falls right onto the ground. There's not much to it. Pull the rim off, and you want to inspect it. You do want to check out that center strip, because that basically is what protects your tube from the spokes, because the spokes can be a little bit sharp in there. If it's all chewed up and messed up, depending on how long it's been on there, you might want to get a new one. They're cheap, like I said, Cycle Gear, Rocky Mountain, any of those places, you can get a new rim strip. They have so many different names, but that will protect it, and also clean it up. Get a rag out. I like to use microfiber towels because they don't leave any fibers or any of that stuff, and they're just real good for cleaning. What I'm doing now, believe it or not, it's 23 degrees outside, so I have a torpedo heater. I'm warming up that rubber, and tires going a lot easier when they're warm versus when they are cold. So if it's the summertime, go stick them out in the sun for 10 or 15 minutes and soften it up. It'll make it real nice to put that tire on. Next thing, grab that tube. You notice I'm holding the tube. That tube, you're going to want to inspect it. You don't want to put in a bad tube, you know, just in case something happened, you pinched it whenever you were taking it off, or something was in the way, or you just weren't paying attention. You'll notice here in a minute what I'm going to do is I'm going to air that tube up here in just a second, just to double check to make sure that it's holding air, it's not leaking. And once I'm sure that that's good to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that tube and I'm going to stuff it inside of the new tire. That's that new Shinko E804, if I'm not mistaken. I got the E04 805 front and rear. That's going to be another review. It's a great tire, and we're going to discuss that in pretty good detail. I put many thousands of miles on those tires. Once that's done, get your tire if you've had it inspected. My front tires are always clean. I take real good care of my stuff. I don't really have to worry about too much debris. First thing I'm going to do is I'm looking for the valve stem area on your rim. Once I do that, that's usually going to be my starting spot. Alright, now that we got the tire all set up, first thing you're going to want to look for is your directional arrow. That's what I'm pointing at right now. There's an arrow on usually almost all tires, unless it's a multi-directional tire. Then it doesn't matter which way you put it on. So you're going to want to make sure that that arrow goes in the direction that the motorcycle rolls. So usually the discs are usually on your clutch side and for your disc brake, and that's usually a telltale. So if you do that, you want to make sure that the arrow matches that side, which it does not. If you notice, I put it on the wrong way. I flip it over, I know 100% now that that is the right direction that tire is going to go. Here's the problem that you'll have if you put it on incorrectly. A, you're going to have to take it off if you're an actual guy that's pretty finicky about how he does his bikes and his tires. Because what you can do is you can basically get an unbalanced tire, you can get waffling, or you can get cupping on the tire. Not only that, you can actually just destroy the tire and it can actually come apart on you. It's just a bad idea. There's a reason why that arrow is put on the tires on the sidewall. You notice now what I'm doing is I'm putting the inner tube inside. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to shape that inner tube. And it just makes it a whole lot easier if I put it in there and shape the tube. That way I know that it'll form inside that 21-inch tire, and it makes it real easy when I do my insulation. If you notice right here, this is something that my wife got for me. Picked it up at Home Depot. I want to say it was like $9. It's a high pressure, basically a bicycle pump. But it weighs nothing. It fits in my gear real easy. Doesn't take up any space, and it actually, believe it or not, it will pump 225 psi. I've never used it, so I'm going to test it out right here. And believe it or not, it worked fantastic. It was a great buy for Christmas. It was kind of a stocking stuffer. It's not fast by any stretch of the imagination, but it does do the job. And if you're off-road and you're dual sporting and you're out riding around, it works perfect. I mean, if you look right there, it's completely formed that tire. By the way, valve stem is still out, so now it's going to let all the air out, and air will be pressed out when I put the tire on. So what I'm looking for right now is I'm looking for my valve stem hole. So it's over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate that tire until put it on the valve stem. I'm going to kind of angle the tire just a little bit. Then I'm going to put my hand inside of the rim. I'm going to push it through the hole, and then I'm going to put that nut back on, but I'm only going to put it on halfway. Reason being is I don't want that tire, the valve stem, to pop out when I start doing my tire. So by doing that, it makes it real easy to make sure that tube doesn't spin around while I'm trying to put the tire on. And then once we're all done, I'm going to go through and explain why most guys, unless you're using rim locks, not to tighten your valve stem nut all the way down. It's kind of a misconception. A good buddy of mine that used to race motocross told me that I was crazy for putting it down, and I'm going to explain a little bit later on. So what I'm doing now is good old-fashioned soap and water. That right there is my lubricant, because I'm cheap and I'm always trying to find a buck, or a way to save a buck, more or less. And I want to make sure that it slides on at least with as little effort as I possibly can. So the first thing that I do is I use manual power. I'm pushing down on it, trying to seat as much as I can without having to get any spoons out, because spoons are where you run into your problem of basically pinching your tube. So if you'll notice, you can usually get almost about 50% of that tire down if you look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the inside very carefully, slide it inside of the rim so I don't scratch it, and then I'm going to push forward, and it's going to kind of pop right over. You notice it's just going to seat down, and I'm going to leave that spoon in there, and I'm going to go over about 6 inches, little bites, and then I'm going to just slide it in and then pop. It's going to pop right in. It's going to be real simple. And then once I get that in there, I'm going to kind of turn that spoon all the way about 60 degrees and slide it out. And the reason being is it will make it much easier whenever I try to pull all the spoons out. I did grab a third spoon. only because I really didn't need it, but it didn't take much, and it's fixing to pop on. You'll see here in about 2 seconds. It's really pretty simple. I probably could have just used my hand with the 2 spoons and just pushed it right over the edge. And if you notice now, it is I'm just checking my tube out, and she's just about to pop over. And she's on. Get the spoons out of the way. That's, believe it or not, putting the tire on, that's the hardest part of it. Next part that's coming up is the no pinch tire tool from Baja, and I tell you what, best investment I ever made. I think it cost $160, but that's for everything. It does everything from small dirt bikes all the way up to my KTMs, my BMWs, the Honda. I mean, you pick it, it will work. So now what I'm doing is it's a final double check. I'm pumping that tire up just to make sure that there's no leaks in it before I do the final set. And I'm putting my finger inside just to feel the tube and see if it's airing up. And I'll hold it for just a second. Then I'm going to unscrew my pump. And once I'm done there, I'm going to run over and get the no pinch tire tool, and we're going to get that set up. And if you notice, my tire's good. I've got a smile on my face. We're going to move on to seating the tire. This is the easiest part, and there's really no magic to it, but it is magic if you've ever tried to do your own tires with just spins. I've used a Baja no pinch tire tool. I can't count how many tires. I've never, ever, ever pinched or popped a tube. So it has a name for a reason, and that's why everybody loves it. You'll never find a bad review on it. If you notice now, what I'm doing is I'm going to get my bead holder. Those things are priceless. And what happens is you push the tire in. I usually like to do mine over by the valve stem. That way it kind of keeps the valve stem in place. So what you do is you'll push down on the tire, you'll slide it just up underneath the rim. It goes in a little finicky, but it's not too bad. Then you slide, there's a little bitty open notch that'll go right in between a spoke, and it keeps it from moving. And it's really invaluable. They're real cheap. I think it's Cycle Gear. They are pretty cheap. I want to say that they are somewhere around probably 20 bucks or something like that. But if you shop around on eBay or Amazon, I think you can get them a little bit cheaper. But what that's going to do is that's going to keep your tire from basically popping back off the rim when you start going around the rim itself to seat that tire. If you notice, I pulled out the Baja no pinch tool. There are about 4 different tubes that will slide into where the axle nut goes for all different size tires. If you look, it took me 3 tries. I didn't do very well on that one, but it's usually set up for my KTM. It has bigger axle nuts on it, so there's number 2, and I think number 3 we kind of hit a winner. But the nice thing is if you get the whole kit, it comes with everything. It'll do every tire on the planet, and it's not real heavy. It's actually packable. You can take it on a trip if you wanted to, and it works. It's just I can't really give it more than just 100% props because it does such a great job. And what it does is it basically uses sliding and leverage with a metal arm. The only thing I wish they would do different with this tool is change the actual sliding lever to aluminum. And I'm going to try to do a review on it and send something over to them and maybe see if they can't come up with an aluminum arm, and that would make it great for packing because that's the only thing that makes it heavy. I'm lubing all the way around with my soap and water around the tire, and what I'm going to do is you pull basically backwards and forwards, and you're pushing the tire in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another review, and I'm actually going to just do the no pinch tire tool itself and show you exactly how easy it is to use it. Do a real close-up shot. And what it is where the rim has the actual there's a lip on it on every tire that you buy, And you'll notice what I'm doing is there's a little bitty notch on that no pinch tire tool, and I'm just sliding it. And as you watch that tire, it just falls in. And what happens is it will fall and drop inside of the upper lip of the rim, and that's what the magic is. So after about 2 or 3 pushes, you'll see I'll rotate and push that tire down. And what happens is as it's pushing it down, it's pushing the tube completely away from the tire itself. So it makes it literally pretty much darn near impossible to get a pinch flat from seating your tire versus spoons, whereas spoons go in and you're forcing it up and over, and then it will slam down on the tube, and that's how you get a pinch in your tube. And there's nothing worse than whenever you're trying to do your own tires. That's what discourages most people, is they use spoons, and you get it all done and you're excited and you want to jump for joy, and then you air it up and it goes flat instantly. That sucks. It's not fun. I've actually done it, and I just knew there had to be a better way. So after months of searching and checking things out, I found this tool again, no pinch Baja tire tool. Just amazing tool. But if you watch, I'm just taking little bitty bites, and you can see that tire, it just wants to fall in. And now we're at the last 30% of the tire. This is the worst part. This is the part that basically ruins people for doing tires, because it gets so hard, because a tire is smaller than the rim itself, and you're trying to shove a rubber tire around a piece of aluminum rim. But the magic is fixing to happen, because basically it's going to take about 2 seconds and I'm going to have this tire on, and it's no effort at all. It's very, very, very simple. So once I come back, you'll notice I was looking for some lubricant, by the way, because it was kind of sticking, but what I found out is that when you put the sliders that go in where the axle nut is, I screwed it in too far and I locked it down, and it was basically grabbing. So that was a lesson learned right there. So if you notice, I'm messing with it and it's sticking, but I figured that out. Just don't screw it in all the way, and then tighten down the Allen bolt, and you're good to go. But this tire, literally, I have about probably 2 or 3 more pushes, and this bad boy is fixing to drop on there, airs up, and it's good to go, because this is the hardest part right here. Right there, if you've ever spooned a tire on, it sounds like that tire is going to tear, rip, and break, and it's just about to pop on. And let's see, I think right there it is done. And I can tell you with 100% accuracy, because we're fixing to air it up. It is 100%, and it's that simple. You slide out that rim, that bead lock, and pull out the tire tool. That thing is, it's amazing. It's the best. Everybody should own one. If you own a motorcycle, you should own one, and everybody should do their own tires. I'm going to push down. The reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to make sure that I've got it completely on there, and before I put everything back on, which now, if you notice, I just grabbed the valve stem. I'm screwing that back in, and now what we're going to do is we're going to seat the tire. Usually takes, these tires here, they say 42 psi. Usually it doesn't take that much. It usually will take about 30-35 psi. They'll make a little snapping sound with an air compressor if you do it. I actually tried to use my pump to do it, and it almost seated it. I ended up having to use my air compressor to finalize the tire, but I tell you what, it came darn close. If I was stranded on the side of the road, I'm pretty sure that I could have got that pump to work. I'm pretty confident in it. If it came between me being stranded in the desert 50 miles from civilization and that pump airing that tire up, make no mistake, that pump's going to work. Especially if I had to take the tire and put a new tube in. But other than that, there's really not much to it. So doing your own tires is not something you need to be discouraged about. I think everybody should learn how to do their own tires, especially if you're getting into dual sporting, because sometimes there's just not going to be somebody there to save you. And it's nice to know that you have the capabilities if you are willing to, get out of your comfort zone and actually try to do it. But anybody can do it. I'm sitting there pumping, and I'm running, I'm sitting there dying. But other than that, I mean, it aired up. It did a pretty good job. But at the end of the day, nothing beats a good old air compressor. It's faster. I'd have been done 10 minutes ago, but other than that, but that's really pretty much it. Tires are not that difficult. Having the right tool for the job is everything. I mean, it really does. It will simplify anything that you do. So, again, like I said, changing your tires yourself will save yourself a boatload of money. I hope this helped a little bit. It's not totally in-depth. I'm going to try to do a more in-depth one a little bit later. But there is more to come from 690 ADV. Thank you for watching, and God bless.